Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Energize Your Online Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, guys. Today we're going to dig into, I was going to say a juicy topic, another juicy topic, but definitely one that is not just a question for people who haven't yet started building their course business, but also for those who are wondering what the potential could be. And so the topic we're going to address is how much can a course selling business make? What is the potential?
Limitless is the
Limitless.
short answer. But I think, for people who haven't started selling their course or maybe thinking about still building their course, you obviously want to know something is possible before you start pursuing it. And so I think, it's very easy to see, okay, I've seen one or two anecdotes of people who've done this successfully. Is it possible for me to do this successfully? And I think the good news is, yes, it's absolutely possible. If it's possible for someone else, then it's absolutely possible for you to achieve it as well.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, way back when I was just doing kind of selling my course on the original course on the side, the copywriting course on the side, and was doing copywriting work for other business owners. I had an invoice I needed to send out to a business coach, and she said, "Oh, make sure to send your invoice." And I said, "Is there any chance you'd be willing to barter? Because it's like a $700 invoice." I said, "Would you be willing to barter for just like an hour of your time?" Which, in retrospect, yes, she would barter $700 for an hour of her time. I'm sure she was like, duh.
Bargain.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and especially too, basically the entire conversation was me going, is this really possible? Like, can I actually do this? Can I actually sell courses? And can I actually make a living at this? And, she's basically looking at me going, well, yeah, because it's what she was doing every day. Right. But it was pretty amusing. So I definitely understand that desire to have someone say to you, yes, this is possible. So let Kate and I be the ones to say to you, yes, this is possible.
And on the other side of things, I think what we often see a lot, I think, in the circuit sales system group is people unnecessarily limiting themselves with what they can achieve, that not dreaming big enough, not thinking that more is possible. And so the good news there too is that you can dream bigger, and that we're the best people at limiting our own goals and what we want to achieve. But if we can learn to recognize when we're limiting ourselves and we're kind of setting the bar even too low for ourselves, then we can adjust it.
Yeah, I certainly see this among, and you certainly not just in the CSS student group, but just entrepreneurs in general. Like we work really hard to get to a certain level, and it's that concept of what got you here won't get you there. You work really hard to get to a certain level, and then once you hit that level, you have trouble breaking through to the next level, of income, of time freedom, of whatever it is, because you don't have the knowledge to get you there, because everything that you did got you to where you are. And that's great. But everything you did is just going to keep getting you to the same place. So in order to make a change to your business, you have to, if you want a different output, you have to make a change to the input. And I think that that's something that entrepreneurs, I don't want to say struggle with, but it can be a challenge for entrepreneurs at each level of growth, because they work hard, they get to a level and they're like, yes. And then to keep growing, they need to go back and reevaluate and change and figure out, okay, like I said, this got me here. What do I need to do or change or even just reevaluate to get me to that next place I want to be? Yeah.
And I think even just having the mindset that that's just how really life is that, the world keeps changing, information changes, new technology comes out. There's always something new and different, and there's always change. And so being able to have the mindset that you are ready and excited and prepared to continuously evolve as needed to keep up with whatever the changes are and to make adjustments as needed to thrive. It's just part of the process. Versus I think sometimes we think, well, if I just do this and I achieve this, then I'm here and I'm set and I can just kind of coast at this level and be at this level. But even if you don't want to set, higher goals for your business yourself and you're happy with where you're at, there's inevitably going to be something that comes up that's just necessary to adjust and adapt and make slight changes to keep up with what's happening.
Yeah. And we'll get into in just a little bit some of the factors to keep in mind as you're thinking about, either starting or growing your business. But just in terms of real practical terms, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are I think it tends to be a lot of newer business owners who are making, in the 0 to 100,000, the 0 to 6 figures. That's kind of the first step to get to. That does tend to be newer business owners. There are a lot of business owners in the 100,000 to 500,000 range. If I had to make a guess, I would say maybe 50 to 60% of them are in that 100,000 to $500,000 range. And then in that 500,000 trying to break that 7-figure mark, I would say maybe 20% in there. It's a much smaller percentage as we get into the actual 7-figure. And then multiple 7-figure, which I'm multiple, and I should say all of this is per year. Sometimes you'll hear people say like, I have a 7-figure business, and that's awesome. But unless they're saying 7 figures per year, generally 7 figures means that it's a cumulative, I have a 7-figure business. Okay. So over the past 5 years, you got to 7 figures, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. But if you're just listening, I just want to make sure that you understand the numbers that we're talking about. So, into the 7 figures, I think we get into, it's a very small percentage. I want to say 5%. It might even be less than that. Into the multiple 7 figures per year, which very, very proud and honored and humbled to say that that's where we are. I want to say it's in like the 2%, maybe even a little bit less. And then there are also some course creators who are in the 8-figure per year, meaning they're making $10 million per year and more. So it is all perfectly possible. And the factors that you might want to think about is, what do you want? What works for your lifestyle? But also at the same time, like Kate was saying, and we'll get more into this, but it's all possible. So don't go into it limiting yourself, thinking, well, I only want to make this. Well, I only want to make this. Because there are also things to factor in as well. Like taxes take a lot out. The cost of your team takes a lot out. The cost of
taking a vacation.
Ads.
You want to factor that in.
Yep, exactly.
With your salary.
Yeah. And you guys may remember my story. It was once I figured out the mechanisms of the circuit sales system, which I didn't call the circuit sales system at the time. It was just what I was using to sell the other courses. I went from $40,000 as a total, as a yearly revenue, to the next year, $268,000 is a yearly revenue, to the next year, $1.6 million is the yearly revenue. And now we're in the multiple 7 figures per year and just steadily growing. But all of that comes from deciding what you want to do and also figuring out what changes you need to make in your business to get there. So anyway, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
So I think the next place we want to jump into is the various variables that will impact your earning limit. Some of the things to consider as you're going into this. Obviously setting goals high is great, but if your goal is, I want to hit 8 figures, okay, how are you going to achieve that, and what are some of the things that might play into? And then obviously, if you're starting from 0, hitting the $100,000 milestone, and then bumping it up and moving steadily versus kind of going in. It's very easy, I think, to set a very high goal, not hit it right away, and then get discouraged. So I think there is something to be said for having goals based on kind of where you're at in the process. So I think the first place to start is, if you're selling a course that's $27 versus maybe someone else who's selling a course that's $5,000, the amount of time that it might take for you to hit certain milestones is going to be different. And so your milestones those would be 2 very different milestones to be selling a $27 course versus a $5,000 course. The number of people that you need to get into your funnel to even have the opportunity to make that purchase, and then looking at your metrics and knowing, okay, what percentage of people are purchasing, and all of those sorts of things. And we'll link to the episode that we did on the metrics to kind of pay attention to and keep an eye on to figure out what makes sense for you, and to then be able to set goals that feel realistic for what your price point is.
Yeah. Which is not to say that it's necessarily going to be easier to hit your, let's say your first goal is the $100,000 mark. It's not necessarily saying that it's going to be easier to hit the $100,000 mark with the $5,000 product, because maybe your audience, we'll talk about that in a second, but maybe your audience is a little bit harder to sell. Whereas the 27, or there are plenty of people I know who have tried to sell a $27 product and just can't get any traction with a $27 product because, for various reasons, it doesn't feel valuable enough to people, or they buy the 27 and then they never buy anything else. So there are a lot of factors that go in, but truly fundamentally, just numbers wise, it's going to take you more sales to get to 100,000 or 500,000 or whatever with a $27 product than with a $5,000 product. And, the whole spectrum, that's not even the full spectrum. There's certainly people who sell less or a smaller product and people who sell more. But that's just numbers, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good note, that it's, price is one piece of it, but then all of the other numbers that go into being able to hit the goal. And to your point about audience, the size of your audience, what is the size of the group that you're selling to? What is the potential there? What is their interest? Do you even know who your ideal customer is, or are you still figuring out who your purchaser is? And are you able to message to that audience in the right way that gets them wanting to buy?
Yeah, that's something we work a lot with our CSS students on. And most of our CSS students come in, if not having a completed course to sell, then being almost there. And I think that there is sometimes some resistance to dig into the audience research, because it's like, well, I know. But invariably, they always discover something new about their audience that makes it easier to sell to that audience. Because until we're actually reaching out and communicating directly with this audience, we don't know them as well as we need to. We don't understand their needs and their wants and their fears and their motivations nearly as well as when we've actually had the opportunity to talk to them and understand. And I think a lot of people want to gloss over figuring out who the audience is. Well, like, I have a really awesome thing and I would buy it, so I'm just going to kind of put it out to the world and the right people will find it. Unfortunately, that's not really the way that it works. You have to do, yes, your messaging can help the right people to find it, but you have to put it in the right places and put it in front of the right people to encourage them, or to even just give them the option to explore and then purchase it.
Yeah, our copywriting students know that, if someone wants to sell a product to everyone, it's very easy then for that not to be successful, because then you're scattered. Your messaging at that point is very unfocused. If you're trying to sell to men and women ages 0 to 99, and, it's just not, it's not a focused, strategic effort.
Yeah. So yes, your audience and what you're selling will obviously and quite necessarily limit what you're selling. Even with iPhone, not everyone is an iPhone user. There's some people that are Android users, and they just are. But at the same time, even what you might think could be a relatively narrow audience can still yield you a really great revenue stream. Actually, I was talking to, I think, I don't know if I ever told you this, Kate. I was talking to my parents a couple of years ago when I went home to visit, and we were talking about the copywriting course, which was our first course and one of our 3 brands. And, and my mom was saying, oh, we're so proud of you, of this business that you're built. And she said, we didn't say anything at the time, but we were really worried. We did not think it was a great idea. We thought, how many people in the world actually want to become copywriters? This is also a good reminder not to, and I love my parents, but it's also a good reminder not to let people who don't know sway your opinions or sway your beliefs, because right now, to date, it's been 11,000 people, and it doesn't look like it's going to be slowing, and there's no reason why it would be slowing anytime soon. So even if you're thinking, well, for example, how many people want to learn copywriting? I can tell you, copywriting, at least, it's a lot, enough.
Yeah, and I think with the copywriting business, what we've found, and folks who are running meta ads might find too, that we've tested certain audiences. For a bit, we were doing marketing interests, because copywriting is part of the marketing world, obviously. But most of our students in our audience aren't marketers. They have never heard of copywriting before. Our audience is really folks who are interested in writing. They love to write. They never thought maybe they could make a career out of writing, and to know that copywriting was an option and that actually does pay well. And so, of course, we've tested other and continue to test new audiences to see what traction there is, but for the large majority of it, that's our core audience, folks who are interested in writing. And so the marketing folks who you would think, okay, that does have a connection to what we're selling, but it just wasn't the right audience for us.
Exactly. Yeah. And it kind of along the same lines of the audience is the niche or niche, whatever you want to say. What is the specific corner of the industry, the specific corner of this group of people that I don't know why I'm saying corner, but small area, the niche that you are selling to? Who, again, getting back to, yes, the concept of it's not everybody, but even within your smaller group, who specifically needs and wants this product? Even a cookbook for someone with type 1 diabetes. Let's say that's your product. Certainly, could you sell that to anybody who wants to be healthier? Absolutely. And you might have some people who just end up buying it just because they want to be healthier. Maybe they see one of your recipes and they don't. But your audience and it's also your audience then in that case would not just be people with type 1 diabetes, but also people with type 1 diabetes who care about managing it through healthy living. So it's not, and it sounds a little bit like we're splitting hairs, but the better you understand your specific niche, the easier it is to speak to them in words that they understand, to come up with messaging and posts and videos and all that kind of stuff that attract them specifically. But at the same time too, when it attracts them specifically, it doesn't attract the other people, right? If you have a message out there, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but if you have a message that's like, manage your or cut down, what is it? I really should know more about this. I want to say it's like A1C. Apologies if you have type 1 diabetes and I'm butchering this. Please understand that I'm doing this for and I don't know why I picked this topic, but here we go. For illustration purposes only. But if you said something about like, hey, manage your A1C levels, or even just like manage your diabetes in the easiest way possible, you're going to get a lot of people. You're going to get, not everybody, but a lot of people with type 1 diabetes. But that's also going to include a lot of people who aren't actually interested in doing the work, who aren't actually interested in a healthy lifestyle, who would prefer between the two to manage it with medications, which is perfectly fine. That's their choice, but that's not your target audience.
Or people who don't even like to cook too.
Yes.
They might want to do, meals that they can order from a company versus cooking themselves.
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
So many layers to it.
It's a great point. Exactly. So you really want to figure out, and you certainly don't have to go, you don't necessarily have to go too granular. This is like a lot of things in business. There's going to be some figuring things out, some testing things out. Like we said, our audience for our copywriters is actually relatively broad. People who like to write who aren't happy in their current jobs. So what we have to do is narrow these people down through, or help them self-select through our ads and through our opt-in page and through our circuit and all that kind of thing. Whereas you might, if you have a narrower niche, you might have the ability to make sure that you are only getting the very best, the leads with the best potential on your email list by really focusing in on your niche.
Yeah. And thinking about your niche too, of how saturated is it? What other competition is there in that niche? It doesn't necessarily mean you should shy away from that niche or not pursue the course idea that you have, or give up on the course idea maybe that you're trying to sell, but more that you really need to differentiate yourself from everyone else within that niche, whether it is by the specific, getting more detailed on the audience and the folks that you're selling to, but also what makes your program different, better, easier, faster, whatever the adjective, maybe a mix of those, likely why people should work with you versus anyone else.
Yes, that's a really great point, because there are going to be competitors. There just are. We would be doing you a big disservice if we said just start your business and it'll be great. There you have competitors. But the way that, first of all, I'm sure elements of what you teach or sell or whatever are going to be different, and also the way that you sell it and teach it are going to be different, but you have to communicate that to your target audience. They can't tell the difference between you and somebody else. They you might lose their business, or maybe they just don't choose at all. But fundamentally, if you're going to go into business, you have to have something that makes you different. Otherwise, there's no point. Otherwise, you're just selling the same thing as other people are, and it's no point in being in business. And that actually kind of gets back to the, skip ahead a little bit, but into your marketing efforts is how are you getting out into the world, and how are you communicating what makes you different? How are you talking about how your program benefits people? How are you reaching the right people? How are you inspiring them? How are you helping them to recognize what's not working in their lives, which quite frankly can sometimes be really, really important part of that message. People can be living at a low level of misery, and then you say, hey, there's a different way of living, and they go, oh wow, a solution I didn't even realize was there. But and obviously there's so many factors in marketing, but it is a major consideration in how big you will be able to get your business to go. Number one, really getting specific about how you are marketing, what you are saying to people, and like we're saying, who you're saying, and where and how you're doing it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think we'd be remiss to not say too, just thinking about your offer itself and making sure it's something that people want, that people are interested in it, that it is solving some sort of pain point, or it is giving people some sort of transformation. It is valuable, not just in and that ties to the marketing efforts. Are you communicating that value in a way that makes it compelling to people? But fundamentally, thinking besides the price point and the value of it, that's obviously way higher than your price. Fundamentally, though, is it something people want? Is it valuable in the sense that it's going to do what it purports to do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and unfortunately, just well, I would buy this, so I made it. It's not enough. You need to know that there's an audience out there that will buy it. And same thing too with when you say, hey, I was thinking of creating a course, and a friend goes, oh my gosh, this is such a great idea. You should totally do it. Now, great friend, keep that friend. They're so supportive. Love that. But just because you've been encouraged to do it doesn't mean that it's something that people will necessarily buy. I see a lot of business owners struggle because they've created a course that only addresses half an issue, or they've created a course that is what they want to teach people versus what people actually want to learn or want to know. And there are all kinds of nuances there, certainly. So we're not going to dig in there,
Mhm.
maybe in a different episode. But yeah, if you're gonna sell something, it has to be something that people want to buy, and not just you and not just your friend. It has to be something that your audience actually says, "Ooh, yes, give me that. I have to have that."
Mhm.
So those are kind of the like we said, the variables that can impact your earning, can limit them, or can increase your ability to earn. But in this next section, we want to go into some of the things that you want to think about as you are planning to hit your higher goals. If you're going, all right, here's where I am, and next year I want to hit X amount, or even here's where I am, and I'd eventually like to get to the point where my business is maybe you're making 250,000 a year, and you're thinking, all right, I eventually want to get to the point where I'm making 7 figures a year. These are some of the considerations you're going to want to think about.
Yeah, I think the first and foremost is if you're offering one-to-one services, looking at how you can make it one too many, because obviously your time is limited. And so if you are working one-on-one with everyone that's part of your program, which isn't to say you can't have a coaching component, which isn't to say you can't still do one-on-one coaching, but making sure that there's an element that is one to many so that you can serve more people and get your offer in the hands of more people.
Exactly. And I know that sometimes business owners are like, but I love to coach, and that's great. Awesome. And if you love to do something, keep doing it.
Mhm.
But I will talk to a lot of businesses who are like, well, I started out loving coaching, and now it kind of drains me a little bit, but they need me. They need my insight.
Mhm.
They need me. And I'm just going to challenge you on that very gently. They don't need you. They need the information and insight that you have. And they also probably, most of them, don't need the full 100% expertise level that you have. They maybe need like the 80% expertise. My point is that it doesn't have to be you. You could train up coaches who understand the party line, who understand your teaching, who understand, and really train them well. But they can provide that same level of coaching and support and motivation and insight that you can without you having to be there. I will also say, and I will say this because we've done this on
All the
all of our
brands.
courses. Yeah. In CSS, we have specifically trained our expert copywriters to know the CSS system. And they're in there along with me every day, Monday through Friday, giving feedback. But the great thing then too is because coaches will offer additional insight and will offer additional perspective that you don't have. So I don't think of it as like, well, they're not getting me, so they're getting a step down. That's not necessarily true. Most of your students will probably ask a lot of similar questions, and your coaches can field those questions and give the right answers. But they also, because they've had different experiences, because they just have different lives than you do, they might be able to connect to students in a different way, offer insight from different experiences, offer a different perspective, which is actually more valuable because your students already get you and your insight in your courses. And if you do, group coaching calls, maybe they get you there as well. But then to also have this option to work additionally with someone who's been coached by you, but who isn't you, that can be additionally more valuable for them in a lot of ways. And what that allows you to do is to offer, if you want to be offering one-to-one coaching or even one-to-many coaching, but you don't want it to limit your schedule, this can be a great way to add more value, but to actually take it off of your plate more. So if you're in a one-to-one and you're like, this is how it has to be, or, well, I have to offer one-to-one to some degree, or I have to be the one to do the coaching, it's not the case. It's just not.
Yeah. And I would file this under the not making assumptions. I think, one of the things we found, especially in our copywriting program with the coaching, is that yes, the students value the coaching immensely. But I think part of it too is realizing that they actually need structure, a lot of them. They need more accountability. And so some of the coaching calls and whatnot help them have a time, place to show up and feel accountable. But that doesn't mean that we have to solve that problem with coaching per se.
Mm-hmm.
When it's an accountability issue, I think, digging in, I guess, to say, what are the real issues happening? Is it that they need one-to-one coaching, or is it the accountability piece? Is it having deadlines? Is it having someone to check their work, to give feedback? Is it a combination of these things? And can they be solved by different solutions versus coaching? And so I think the more creative we can get and challenging the assumptions of it has to be this, the better it is to just explore possibilities and trying things. And if they don't work, knowing, okay, we tried that, here's what happened. Maybe that's something we try again in the future. Maybe we don't try that again for a while. Maybe we try this other thing. Trying things gives you more information to work with, to say, okay, here's what we learned from this. Here's our new hypothesis of what we think could really be the best solution for this. And there's no real way, I think, to find the best solution until you try things and get that more. You can't know what you don't know. And so I think that's what it's getting that information as you go.
Yeah, I agree. And this next one, I think, it's going to be kind of a good news, bad news scenario, or maybe bad news, good news thing for business owners. The bad news is that nothing will support or hinder your business growth more than your messaging. Absolutely nothing. And I think I'm guessing that's bad news for a lot of business owners, because I know there are a lot of business owners who kind of wait until the end to try to figure out their messaging, or try to outsource it completely. And don't get me wrong, hire copywriters, but you need to know what you want them, fundamentally what you want them to say before you hire a copywriter. But I think a lot of business owners don't want to deal with their messaging because it's so important. But it is very important. And the good news side of this is that you can figure it out. you can get your messaging so dialed in. Your messaging, if you want to be a successful business owner, your messaging needs to make people go, oh my gosh, I want that. I have to have that. I'm buying it right now. Or I genuinely can't buy this now, but I will buy this soon. Obviously, we want more people in the first camp, but we'll take both. But it is going to be your messaging that either helps you grow, or a major factor in your growth is going to be your messaging. If you can't figure out how to convey to your target audience exactly why they have to have something, they're not going to figure it out for themselves. They just won't. If they don't immediately get it, and immediately, not just to get like, oh, I understand that's why they're selling it, but if they don't understand why they have to have it, they're not going to purchase it. And I see this again and again and again with business owners who are like, this is my course and some people buy it, but I really would like to increase my conversion rates. And what we see is just messaging that is convoluted, or it's cloudy, or it's non-specific, or it doesn't connect with the target audience.
Mm-hmm. And to go back to what we were saying earlier about competitors, it's the same thing of what makes you different than anyone else in your space. Why should people buy from you versus them? And especially if you have strong competitors where people are purchasing from them frequently, it's extra crucially important that your messaging makes it very clear why they should go with you and not them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. This other point, we actually just did a full podcast on this, so we'll include the note, but we do want to mention it here because it's an important point. And that concept is being willing to invest in essential programs, or being willing to hire, which is investing in team members, in order to help you grow before you feel ready. I think a lot of, and this is kind of the consumer mindset, is like, well, I have to wait and I have to save up to afford this program or afford this team member or that kind of thing. And we're not at all saying jeopardize your business by purchasing a program or hiring a team member. Don't do that. And if that's going to jeopardize you, there are bigger problems, stuff that must be fixed. But in order to get to the next level, you need that person in place. In order to get to that next level of income, you need what you're going to learn in that course. You're not going to get to that next level of income before you invest in that program. You need to invest in that program to get to that next level of income. And same thing with a team member. In order to get to that next level of income, you need that team member to take stuff off of your plate so that you can get them to the next level. You're not going to get to the next level before you hire the team member. You're going to get to the next level because you hire the team member, or you invested in the course or the program or whatever. And again, we'll link the show note or link in the show notes the link for that longer episode if you really want to dig into that.
Yeah. And another longer episode that we mentioned earlier or alluded to earlier was the one on metrics, which you'll also link to. But that's crucial, I think, to ensuring that you can grow, of making sure your numbers work. And obviously those numbers will be specific to you. I think there are lots of roundups of, industry-wide statistics about conversion rates and open rates for emails and all of these sorts of things that aren't necessarily helpful to benchmarking what's going to happen for you in your specific program, even if it's within your industry. I think all of those roundups are just they're too general. Everything's going to be specific to you, your audience, the cost of your program, what your conversion rates are, how much it costs to get someone into your funnel, how much it costs to acquire a customer, all of these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And the more clarity you have around that, then obviously the more ability you have to make adjustments to the price of your program if you need to. The more ability you have to make revenue.
Yeah. Well, and I want to make sure too that people aren't thinking just in terms of like ad cost. Well, I'm not running ads, so I don't need to think about that. There is a cost. There is a time and energy, and then therefore money cost if you're just doing organic. So how much time and energy does it take you to get a sale via organic? If you're selling a $500 product, a course, and it takes you, basically you figure out it takes you 3 days of organic effort to make a $500 product, does that actually work out to support you? If you're making a sale once every 3 days through your organic effort, does that are you making enough money or are you spending more money to run your business than you're making through your sales? It's a little bit easier to figure out with ads, certainly, because you can, and yes, there are numbers that you need to go through, but metrics that you need to kind of break down. But it's very easy on ads to end up spending $505 to make a $500 sale. And obviously, you can't do that. You can't spend $500.01 to make a $500 sale because you are in the hole. And every time you make a sale, you are going to end up effectively in debt to yourself. A business can't run without making any kind of profit. So you have to understand, you have to dig in and understand your metrics, whether it is ads or whether you're focusing on organic, but how much time, effort, money, all this kind of stuff is it costing you to make a sale? You may discover that your course is priced too low. If you have a $297 course and you see the effort it takes to make a sale, you may go, "Oh, I can't run a successful business if it takes me $300 worth of effort to make a $297 sale." It's the same thing. You can't run a business that way. At the end of every year, you're going to go, "Why am I further and further in the hole? I made sales and I didn't do ads. Why am I further in the hole?" Because you're still spending you're spending time and energy, and maybe if you have team to help you, all that kind of stuff, you're still going to end up in the hole. So these are numbers that you have to understand.
And I think to the time aspect too, just how much time you want to devote to your program. Obviously you don't have to spend 80 hours a week to hit a certain income goal that you have, but maybe you only want to work a handful of hours a week. What does that mean? How much can you maximize that time to make it possible to do what it is that you want to do? Is it possible to do what you want to do in that time frame? And so thinking about just how much time do you have, and are you treating it like a business, or is this a side hustle for you, or is this what is this?
Exactly. And then a couple more elements to increase your revenue, help you increase your number one, affiliates. Working with, whether they are affiliate partners, who also own other businesses and you're sharing audiences, whether they are former students who you might not get a ton of influx, but if they say, if you have a lot of students and you have a lot of affiliates and they talk to one or two other people a year, you could make some nice, easy sales that way without having to put out much effort. Obviously, if you're going to put together an affiliate program, you have to make it easy for people to use. But there are actually now a lot of programs that make it easy. And then I think the other element is just figuring out the average lifetime value of a customer and how you can increase that. I think a lot of people, when they have one, and we're not at all saying come out with a bunch of offers at the same time. No, you should have one core offer, but then you might have additional things, and that will probably represent the bulk of your income. But are there additional things that you could add that will enhance that offer? So if you have an offer, is there something that could make it faster, easier, or get them better results with, in addition, so sell them something that will get them faster, easier, better results with that core offer? That could make an excellent upsell. An upsell should fall into one of those three categories or more than one of the categories. And then downsell could be, all right, they didn't want this offer, maybe they'd like this instead. So obviously it's something only after, but all of these things upsells can help to increase the average lifetime value. Downsells can as well, but downsells can help recoup some of your costs to acquire people. So if someone is just not purchasing your main offer, maybe it's just not right for them, maybe who knows, but if you paid $5 to get that person on your list as a lead and they're not buying your main offer, okay, that's fine. But if it's not fine. We want to optimize, figure out exactly what's going on here. But there will be some people who get on your list that just aren't right. But if maybe after that main offer, you offer a downsell, which is just slightly different, maybe for a different type of person or a different type of need, and that's a $47 product. If you get that person to buy, you've just made $42. And I know that it's like, well, I'm going to run a business on $42. Well, when you have hundreds of people buying that downsell, that can help a lot. And then that can go right back to your ads costs and help cover your ads costs. Okay, so it's business, right? nobody told us that business was going to be easy, even though sometimes there are definitely days when we're all like, why isn't this easier? I get that. But there are a lot of factors that go into business, but that's also part of what makes this so much fun. It's like a puzzle with all of these different factors that you can play with and experiment with. And not only is it a fun puzzle, but it's also a puzzle that as you start to unlock it, as you start to make it work, you don't just benefit yourself by getting more income, but you also benefit other people by selling them courses, programs that positively impact their lives. And I can't think of a more fun way to spend my day than by doing that. And if you're listening to this, you are probably feeling the same way. Yes, there are some times when it's challenging, but we wouldn't like it as much if it weren't challenging. But anyway, we've given you a lot of stuff to go through here. Even if you are an established course creator, even if you've been doing this for a little while, this is a great episode to go back and figure out, of all of these things that we've talked about, where are places that you could optimize. I will tell you, quite frankly, I think probably every business owner has opportunities to optimize in every one of these categories. So maybe pick a couple where you go, ooh, I really haven't worked on that one very much. Or if you're especially brave, and I know you are because you're a business owner, ooh, this one makes me the most uncomfortable. I know for a lot of us, it's going to be metrics. Like, ooh, I've just been kind of skating by, but maybe if something represents a big opportunity, if you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't even dug into that yet, make that one of your priorities. Or if something makes you a little uncomfortable, if it's the kind of thing that makes you go, oh yeah, I've been meaning to do that, now is a great time to do it. So hit save on this episode and hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss future ones. But put some time on your schedule to go back through, because making positive changes to these things will only have positive changes to your bottom line. And how much can you make with your digital course? How much do you want to make? How big do you want this to be? And it doesn't have to be big. You don't have to be going for 7 figures. Maybe you'd be perfectly happy with 500,000 a year, which is fantastic, awesome. Or maybe you're thinking, ooh, I want to get to the multiple 7 figures. I want to see how big I can get. Great. It's a very personal thing. But the only way to get to where you want to go is to examine and optimize all of these different factors. So with that, we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Do you want to learn how to sell and scale your offer on autopilot every single day without the chaos of live launching or the low conversions of Evergreen? Who doesn't, right? Get our free on-demand video training at circuitsalessystem.com/free. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you never miss a video. We'll catch you next time.